episode 29 of the Unscripted Company podcast. We're diving into uncharted waters with the Bermuda Triangle, or the Devil's Triangle, whatever you want to call it, whatever floats your boat or sinks it. We're going to talk about it. Riley, question for you. I've looked into the Bermuda Triangle this past week. I know of the myths. I know of the urban legends with it. But I never really sat down and really looked at how many incidences have, at least on record, occurred there. Prior to this week, knowing that we had this episode coming up, how much did you know about the Bermuda Triangle? Were you pretty well versed in it? Is this kind of uncharted waters for you?
I wasn't super obviously knowledgeable about it, but it's always fascinated me just as, well, a normal everyday person, because you hear about airplanes going missing, you hear about just, certain things happening and then people just vanish off the face of the earth kind of thing. So for me, it wasn't as I knew everything. I'll be honest, a couple of the things I've looked at time-wise that happened in the 1900s. I mean, a lot of that I didn't know about, but I know there were some things that happened in the early 2000s and just various things just throughout our early childhoods that, you wouldn't expect to happen, but there's just something going on out there that obviously, is unknown to a lot of people.
That's what's crazy. There's a lot of theories, but there hasn't been anything firmly stated as this is the reason things happen here. So we'll dive into a lot of what those theories are, both the ones that are very woo-woo and out there, but there's also a good set of explanations that are grounded in science relatively. So we can dive into both sides of that. One other thing that I kind of did for the first time, I never really took the time to look at where exactly the Bermuda Triangle currently is. So I want to throw that up just to give everybody context of what we're going to be talking about here. So I have Google Earth, handy dandy, the Bermuda Triangle. So of course it is a triangle in the North Atlantic Ocean with the island of Bermuda, spoiler alert, as one of the corners. Basically, it's Bermuda, South Miami, and you could say, some people say it goes down to Puerto Rico, but it's kind of like a triangle that forms right in here. And so I didn't realize how close to Florida it was. Did you already know all this?
Yeah, no, as far as the sizing of it, where it was actually located at, it wasn't as far away as people actually thought it was. We'll definitely, kind of touch base on that a little bit more. Before we do get too heavily into this, as most of you know, we usually do what's known as the Watercooler. We usually have a little bit of small talk just to kind of talk and discuss our weeks and kind of what if we have anything coming up. So, JK, how was your week?
Man, week went by fast. I know you mentioned that too before we hit record. But it's one of those things where it's when someone goes, "Oh, how was your week?" I'm like, "Well, I went to work and then I went home, except I work from home. So I was in the same place the whole time. It was a good week though. Very busy, a lot of projects going on at the office. So can't really complain." I'm trying to think. Went out with some friends yesterday, some breweries around town, and had a night of debauchery. It was good. Can't really complain. How about you? I know you told me some potential exciting news. You don't have to break that news now if you want, because I know things are still pending, but how was your week, good sir?
I mean, the week itself was just, it was a week. I mean, we had a lot of classes, we had a lot of meetings and stuff. Obviously, I have at least 2 to 3 meetings per week, depending on what's going on. But officially, as of yesterday, the for my consumers out there, the lawsuit that was pending against the National Association of Realtors, even though I am a part of that association, I was not one of those realtors that was not disclosing information to the public. I was in my best to disclose as much as I could within the confines of the law and what's allowed. But the lawsuit just settled yesterday, so that means now anytime any one of y'all, no matter where you're at in the country, is looking to go buy a house and you're like, "Ooh, I want to go look at this house," by law, a realtor has to have you sign there should be short form versions, but a buyer's representation agreement. So it's any of my consumers out there who see this video or who see this episode, just know that we're not doing it because, you know, we want to. I mean, we want to because we want to sign you on as a client, but at the same time, we have to do it by law now. So don't shoot us. We're just the messengers in all of this. If you have anyone you want to get mad at, I mean, get mad at the lawyers who made the millions of dollars while you got a $30 check in the mail. That's all I'm saying. But just keep that in mind. Don't get upset at the realtors. We're just doing our jobs at the end of the day. Other than that, I mean, it was good. Like I said, I'm waiting to hear back. I mean, we've pretty much already agreed to the terms on the contract. I'm just waiting for the seller to sign off on it. Once the seller signs off on that, we'll be under contract. And then I've got a couple other people who are still actively looking. And then I've got a listing that's supposed to be coming up in a couple weeks. So that's nice.
Nice. So for those of you out there, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in need of a new single-family home, hit up your boy Riley. He will take care of you.
And
after you sign on the dotted line, of course.
After you sign on the dotted line, of course. Yeah, we can have discussions, but we just can't go look at anything until you sign something. So I get it. It is what it is. But again, just a shameless plug. I'd love to sit down and talk with you about it. If anyone's out there looking, just hit me up. So.
Yup. Man, the Bermuda Triangle. Or the Devil's Triangle. Let's get a little baseline here. So I know I showed where it was a second ago, but curious to get your initial take. I mean, we'll dive into what the facts of the situation are, but what's your initial take on the Bermuda Triangle? Do you think it's anything like that's out there that someone could roll their eyes at in terms of an explanation? There's a lot of things like planes go missing, ships go missing,
right.
People go missing. There's a lot of theories out there, but what's your initial take?
To me, so like obviously, yeah, again, you showed it, and honestly, if you want to pull up the map again while I'm kind of discussing this, because there's a couple things I want to just kind of point out, but the Bermuda Triangle itself is actually it's pretty huge, like it goes from the island of Bermuda all the way down there and then back up again, so it pretty much touches Florida to Puerto Rico to Bermuda and back again. Hurricanes go through there, which, funny enough, there's actually a hurricane that's actually going right through the Bermuda Triangle as we speak, which I believe is the first time ever in history that this has ever happened.
Really?
I'm like smack dab. I could be wrong because like hurricanes have gone through that area before, but like this is like directly in the middle of it kind of thing. Or I think it might be the first time it's hitting the islands of Bermuda. So like it's never had that happen before. But to me, I haven't been skeptical about it, but it's like I've always been fascinated by it because it's like, what is it in that specific area of the planet that like all radioactivity, electromagnetic, everything, it just goes out, like planes, like you said, go down, people go missing. And it's like, okay, if a plane happens to, fall into the ocean, that's one thing, but it's like, what if people have survived? Like, where do they end up at? So it's like, there's always like that unknown factor, like where do the people go? Like, do they all actually end up, unfortunately, dying, or do some of them actually survive? I don't think there's ever been anyone that's come out and said like, oh, I've been through to the Bermuda Triangle and I've survived, and if you have, then, well, please reach out to us because we'd like to know that,
I think some people definitely have gone through it. I could be totally wrong thinking that. I think a lot of people avoid it because, it's got a history. It's like that sketchy neighborhood street, people go down it, people survive it, but you don't want to be out there alone at night because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right. Well, that's the thing though, is like, if there's like, let's say you get on a plane and you're flying out of Orlando, you technically have to go through the Bermuda Triangle just to get to the opposite side of the planet, theoretically.
That is true. That's a good question. Like, if they fly out of really anywhere in Florida, north of Miami, like, do they go up the coast and then over? Because I can see that rather than just going directly over. But I guess it also depends where's the destination. Are they going?
Right.
I always forget how big Africa is. Look at this. See how big this is? This is massive.
Well, apparently there was a pilot who actually survived. He wrote a book, but it's Bruce Gernon. Or Jernin, I don't know if the G is, but it's called The Pilot Who Survived the Bermuda Triangle and he did a spring lecture series. But apparently he has a book also. Yeah, he has a book out on Amazon as well. And it tells all about it. I don't know. Again, like, I mean, if he is one of the only survivors, then it's like, I definitely would like to hear his take on it. Obviously without, no offense, but I don't want to buy a book just to read about it. But, I can obviously look up a synopsis about it. But yeah, what about you? What's your take on it? Like, what do you...
I don't know. I have a lot of theories. Like, if you were to ask me without doing any of this initial research, I always thought it has something to do with, there's like a connecting point of, I think it's like 3 or 4 different ocean currents that hit right there. And that explains when ships go lost at sea, especially those with, back in the day before modern equipment and tools, things like that, modern building techniques for ships. Except, I don't know, wooden ships back in the day, they were pretty massive feat in and of themselves. They were done really well if maintained. But I always assumed that was the reason, like, ships went missing. The ones that confuse me are the planes sometimes. It's very difficult to explain when planes disappear. Not related to the Bermuda Triangle, but do you remember, like, the Malaysian flight that went missing a couple of years back?
Yeah, that's one of the most memorable ones. The ones that, like, when I was thinking of was that.
Yeah. Wait, was that over the Bermuda Triangle?
I think it actually, like, I think they went, because, well, where's Malaysia at? It's over in, actually over in Asia itself, right?
Yeah, it's on the other side of the continent.
Okay, because there was
planet.
Well, there was one that I thought that was like, it might have been going down to like South America. I don't know. Like I said, there was a couple instances where, like, in our lifetime where we've had, like, they disclosed and then, like, no, nothing ever happened with it. But anyways, go ahead.
No, yeah. So the planes are the one that's very difficult, because I know we'll look at it, but like Flight 19, back in the 40s, it was like a group of bombers that were flying over the Bermuda Triangle, and they just, like, vanished. And we don't really have an explanation for how they vanished. And you have scenarios where, like, whole ships of people, all the people vanish, the ship vanishes. Maybe they find the ship, but the people are gone, and you're like, okay, what the heck happened here? So my rational brain says, yeah, it has something to do with the way the currents kind of intersect there, creating harsh waters, abnormal sailing conditions.
Right.
But then, if you want to go down a rabbit hole and have some fun with it, you have scenarios off the East Coast where UFOs or UAPs are seen by the U.S. Air Force and Navy, especially off the coast of, I think it's South Carolina in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about it, it's not really too far from the Bermuda Triangle. And it makes you wonder, because they do see stuff out there, unexplainable things. It could be military, tech that they're not willing to tell us yet. Something that Lockheed Martin, or who knows, one of the military subcontractors is working on out there. But I don't know. And like last week, we talked about the hollow earth theory, and you wonder, okay, is it like a portal to somewhere? Who knows? I don't think it's really a portal, but there's definitely something going on.
You never know, man. I mean, no one's ever, except for apparently Bruce Gurdon, no one's ever actually survived it. So I don't know, man.
And I was also, when I was doing my initial research for this, I noticed there's also another place that's similar to this on the other side of the globe, over by Japan, called the Devil's Sea. It's also known as the Devil's Triangle over in Japan. It's a region of the Pacific just south of Tokyo. It has a lot of the similar paranormal, unknown things that happen. Ships go missing, people go missing, pilots, stuff like that. So there's like these little pockets of the world, like we talked about Skinwalker Ranch. That's like a land version of it. There's a lot of weird anomalies that happen on our planet. And I wonder, is the Bermuda Triangle just one of those? Because it could even have something to do with, is there like a paradox at play here? Or is there, I don't know, something like a time rift? I don't know. There could be so many unknown things happening, but I got no answer right now.
You got no answer on that. Well, see, it's funny though, because, and I was just kind of looking at some weird facts about it, and this might be in the notes themselves, but it says the Bermuda Triangle is one of the most heavily traveled shipping lanes in the world. So obviously, I get, obviously, again, ships disappearing, things like that happening because you got multiple different currents, things happening, stuff like that. But when it comes to planes, that's again the big thing. And it says the agonic line sometimes passes through the Bermuda Triangle, including a period in the early 20th century. The agonic line is a place on Earth's surface where true north and magnetic north align, and there is no need to account for magnetic declination on a compass. So that could be, because that was one of my first initial thoughts, was like, okay, there's a heavy magnetic force that's like obviously affecting the radio comms, things like that. You know, people go dark and then you don't hear anything from them, and then you don't hear anything at all after that. That is definitely a strong theory, but it's like it happening that much and then them not being able to figure out how to navigate that. Like, think about how far technology's come, and yet they still can't seem to figure out how to navigate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, kind of to your point, let me pull this up real quick. It's called the Sargasso Sea, and I'm probably mispronouncing this, but it's the Sargasso Sea. It's a region in the Atlantic Ocean, basically where the Bermuda Triangle is located. That's bounded by 4 different currents that form an ocean gyre. Now, I'm not an oceanic academic. I don't know what an ocean gyre is. I'm probably mispronouncing that word too. But you can see in the image over here, it's the converging of at least 4 different currents. So I imagine that creates a very unpredictable and, I don't want to say dangerous. Could be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, but sailing environment in terms of back in the day when ships just went missing, you know, they can sink out there, and if there's nothing to locate the ship on a radar or GPS, like, you're not going to know where that ship went. Our oceans are massive. Stuff gets lost there all the time. We don't know what's going on there. It says the sea's bounded on the west by the Gulf Stream. I'm familiar with the Gulf Stream. On the north by the North Atlantic Current. On the east by the Canary Current. And in the south by the North Atlantic Equatorial Current. And so, I don't know, this stuff's moving fast. Bermuda, the island of Bermuda is near the western fringes of the sea. So it's kind of over in that neck of the woods.
right.
I don't know.
Well, to me, it's like, here's another thing that I've always been curious about too. It's like, when it comes to, like, let's say commercial, like, you know, your big commercial airlines, okay? You have people flying out, flying in, flying out, flying in. Let's say for the, you know, in the last, 50 years, let's say for, like, the incidences that have happened where a plane has fallen out of the sky or something has happened, the plane just disappeared. Okay, cool. That's awesome. If the TSA and all of them that handle all that kind of stuff, as far as, like, just the airlines, like all the people that handle all that, the coordinators, why do they not try to go look for those missing airlines? Why do they not try to send, rescue vessels out there just to see, like, hey, I mean, I get, again, that ocean is massive, but it's like, if you know where the last known location is, which I don't know if they have GPS locators on those planes, I feel like they do. That, okay, like, you're just letting all these people just die, I guess? Like, you're just letting them just all, end up where they end up, but I don't know, that's just me.
We also have weird scenarios talking about planes going missing. You have Flight 19. So for those of you who don't know what Flight 19 is, you can read the page. I'm literally sharing it right here, but it was a designated group of 5 General Motors TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle on December 5th, 1945, after losing contact during a United States Navy overwater navigation training flight from Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale, Florida. All 14 naval aviators on the flight were lost, as well as all 13 crew members of a Martin PBM Mariner flying boat that subsequently launched from Naval Air Station Banana River. That's a good name, Banana River, to search for Flight 19. So not only did Flight 19 disappear, but the crew members of the boat that went to go search for them also were lost. So we don't know what happened. A report by Navy investigators concluded that flight leader Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor mistook small islands offshore for the Florida Keys after his compasses stopped working, resulting in the flight heading over open sea and away from land. The report was later amended by the Navy to read, quote-unquote, cause unknown, to avoid blaming Taylor for the loss of 5 aircraft and 14 men. The report attributed the loss of the PBM search aircraft to an explosion in midair while searching for the flight. So it's interesting. At first, the Navy's like, all right, let's just blame the guy in charge. But they backtracked on that. I get it. Save the guy's reputation in the event it really wasn't his fault.
Right.
But we really have no idea, even to this day, how did we lose 14 naval aviators and 13 crew members? There's 27 people that went missing.
That's 27 people.
And this is the military. This isn't like those silly people that went on that micro submarine down deep in the ocean to go look at the Titanic, and we lost them. And it's like, yeah, no duh. This is like a U.S. military exercise, and we don't know where they went.
You're putting normal people, everyday people underwater like that. But yeah, no, I mean, that's to me, it always throws me off because it's like, you know, like normal incidences I can understand, but it's like when it's military involved and they're supposed to have some of the most, you know, prominent technology that's in that time period, and they still wasn't enough like that. That's what gets me. But yeah.
So it looks like there was an investigation done with this. It says a 500-page Navy Board of Investigation report published a few months later after the scenario made several observations. First one, flight leader Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor had mistakenly believed that the small islands he passed over were the Florida Keys, like we mentioned earlier, that his flight was over the Gulf of Mexico, and that heading northeast would take them to Florida. It was determined that Taylor had passed over the Bahamas as scheduled, and he did, in fact, lead his flight to the northeast over the Atlantic. The report noted that some subordinate officers did likely know their approximate position, as indicated by radio transmissions stating that flying west would result in reaching the mainland. Observation number 2. As noted in the report, Taylor refused to change the radio training frequency to the search and rescue radio frequency. And then parentheses, it says the training frequency was difficult to use because of interference from Cuban radio stations and also a radio carrier wave. Observation number 3, Taylor was not at fault because the compasses stopped working. And observation number 4, the loss of a PBM-5, the plane was attributed to the boat was attributed to an explosion. This report was subsequently amended as cause unknown by the Navy after Taylor's mother contended that the Navy was unfairly blaming her son for the loss of 5 aircraft and 14 men, but the Navy had neither the bodies nor the planes as evidence. Had Flight 19 actually been where Taylor believed it to be, the flight would have made landfall with the Florida coastline within 20 minutes, depending on how far down they were. However, a later reconstruction of the incident showed that the islands visible to Taylor were probably the Bahamas, well northeast of the Florida Keys, and that Flight 19 was exactly where it should have been. So there's a scenario here. I think there's 2 plausible things.
Yeah.
First one, Taylor, leading this group, just got lost. He thought he saw the Florida Keys. It was the Bahamas. He goes, oh, let's turn around. We got to go back this other direction. They end up going over the Atlantic, way out in the middle of it. And then obviously you run out of fuel, can't turn around. You're too far out for radio. Boom, you crash. Everyone's lost. Everything's lost to sea forever. Or option number 2, aliens.
Facts.
I know I just left you with that one, but
yeah. No, I mean, well, there actually has been, like, not reports, but, like, there's been speculation and theories thrown around that the Bermuda Triangle has something to do with aliens. A lot of people, I think there's actually been a couple times where I've seen people try to connect it to the Illuminati, you know, because it's a triangle, and the Illuminati and aliens, and like they try to connect it all together. And I mean, it's a very far-fetched theory. You know, I'll give it to people when they try to come up with that, but it seems plausible in certain cases. I mean, again, like as time has progressed, and yet you still have incidences that have happened. I mean, maybe now far and few in between, but you still have them that happen. So, you know, that's kind of my thing. Now I know obviously the comment I made earlier about the hurricane, but it did say the Bermuda Triangle is subject to frequent tropical storms and hurricanes. And that it may be true, but again, this is the first time that it's hit, obviously, the islands of Bermuda, I believe. But, and then they talk about, so like, I know that usually whenever bad weather happens, usually a lot of commercial flights get shut down. but usually those storms seem to be a lot worse in the Bermuda Triangle. So, yeah, it could be part of it as well. But this is the number right here. It says the exact number of ships and airplanes that have disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle is not known. The most common estimate is about 50 ships and 20 airplanes. To me, that seems a little low, but again, that's just their estimates. It says the wreckage of many ships and airplanes reported missing in the region have not been recovered. And so it's just, again.
Yeah. One of those that they can't find, or they never did find, was the USS Cyclops.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about ships that go missing, and we have no idea what the heck happened, it's hard to know how many ships get lost if you never know that there was a ship to begin with, if you think about it.
Right.
Like USS Cyclops, which we'll dive into this one, we know about it. It was part of the U.S. Navy. But if you're, John Smith and you take your boat out there, you don't tell anybody. First of all, it's international waters. That's pretty sketch if you're not doing it commercially. But if no one knows you're out there and you go missing, like, there's no way for them to track that for statistics. But with the USS Cyclops, this one's it's interesting because it's also the largest, loss of life in a single event?
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know what happened. So the USS Cyclops, it was the second of 4 Proteus-class colliers built for the United States Navy several years before World War I, named after the Cyclops, a race of giants. Okay, you know what a Cyclops is. She was the second U.S. Navy vessel to bear that name. The loss of the ship and 306 crew members and passengers, they all disappeared without a trace on March 4th, 1918. It still remains the single largest loss of life in the history of the United States Navy, not directly involving combat. As the loss occurred during World War I, she was thought to have been captured or sunk by a German raider or submarine because she was carrying 10,800 long tons of manganese, or used to produce munitions, but German authorities at the time and subsequently denied any knowledge of the vessel. So it's interesting. I could see Germany lying about this. It's been like...
I was thinking about that. I was like, what if this is the reason why World War I and World War II all just happened? Like, you took our ship. No, we did. Yes, you did. We're going to bomb you now. They just started World War I, man.
Well, if you think about it, World War start for all sorts of weird reasons. Like World War I started because of they all have pressures that then come to a tipping point because of a certain event. But like World War I started because of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, just the assassination of one of the royals. And, it's one of those things where it's like if you give a mouse a cookie, if you give a mouse a cookie, the mouse is going to want to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like the whole chain of events.
Right.
Similar situation. If you have the world, at a boiling point and someone stuck their finger in too quick, there's going to have this whole chain reaction of other things that happen.
Right.
But at the same time, out of all the ships that have gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle, how many of them were just because Germany was cranky and sunk a few things, And I get it. If you're Germany and someone goes, hey, did you do this? They're like, nah, bro, wasn't me. Wasn't me.
That was just like a fun little theory out there for those of you who are listening. It's just like, what if all of our wars that have ever happened involving our country has started by this one ship going missing because Germany probably destroyed it? Think about it. Please consider the following. Yeah.
Let's see. The disappearance here says the ship was put to sea from Rio de Janeiro on February 16th, 1918, and entered Salvador on February 20th. 2 days later, she departed for Baltimore, Maryland, with no stop scheduled, carrying the manganese ore. The ship was thought to be overloaded when she left Brazil, as her maximum capacity was 8,000 long tons. That seems to break out to be about 8,100 tons, just normal tons. Before leaving the port, Commander Worley had submitted a report that the starboard engine had a cracked cylinder and was not operative. This report was confirmed by a survey board, which recommended, however, that the ship be returned to the United States. She made an unscheduled stop in Barbados because the water level was over the line, indicating that it was overloaded. But investigations in Rio proved the ship had been loaded and secured properly. The ship then set out for Baltimore on March 4th, and was rumored to have been sighted on March 9th by the molasses tanker Amolco near Virginia. But this was denied by the captain of that boat. Additionally, because Cyclops was not due in Baltimore until March 13th, the ship was highly unlikely to have been near Virginia on March 9th, as that location would have placed her only about a day from Baltimore. In any event, Cyclops never arrived in Baltimore. No wreckage of the ship has ever been found.
Some weird stuff, man. We got some Germans being angry out here. Maybe some aliens in there. You know, who knows, man.
Well, the whole thing about the Bermuda Triangle that makes a lot of sense, but I also hate that it makes a lot of sense, is you see all these stories of like planes that go missing, ships that go missing, scenarios, and then when you look into them, you're like, okay, so we have an old ship that's coming from Brazil back to the U.S. It was recommended to come back to the U.S. because it was old and broken down, basically. It had a crack in it. It was overloaded. And think about how I mentioned earlier, how like the currents are kind of like wacky in that part of the ocean. You know, and this is also before like modern day communications. So if you have an SOS, they should have had a way to send out the SOS. They should have like a telegraph wires, right? But, you know, if something goes down there, no one's going to know. And if your boat's already destined to sink and you're out in the middle of the open ocean and you don't have any... The other thing is like, none of the crew apparently survived. So I don't know if they were able to like... I don't know what the whole escape boat situation was.
That's kind of my thing.
It's like pre-Titanic too, right? So
right.
Wait, when did Titanic go down? It
was in the 1920s to 1930 or something like that. I think it was before World War One. No,
1912. So this was after, albeit this is very shortly after Titanic. Also, this is a military ship. Was this? Yeah, a military ship. So I don't know, but it's very interesting.
That's just my thing though. Is like if they did have escape boats, because the military is not just going to send their people out there without a backup if they need it. So it's like, okay, the currents were messing up a ship. The ship actually didn't explode, but it just got sank because of all the currents and everything that was happening. What happened to the people? Like, I'm not saying like they didn't have enough, energy, and obviously they didn't have any food after that point, but it's like you're telling me that nobody made it to a civilization in anywhere. Like, I mean, I don't know exactly if the island of Bermuda was actually inhabited at that time, if there are actually people that were living out there at that time, or if it was just being used for what it's being used for now. So that just kind of begs my question, because it's like, all right, I get it, but that just doesn't make sense to me. It's like all these ships that go down, you don't have any boats to get into to continue your journey so you can at least survive. So
let's get to the bottom as to why that is. So let's start. I'm gonna go from top to bottom in our notes here as to the conspiracy theories behind what the heck happens in the Bermuda Triangle, because clearly something is out of the ordinary here. So coming in at number 1 on the list, the Atlantis theory. So the idea is that the Bermuda Triangle is connected to the lost city of Atlantis, and there are some power crystals to be had here. So there's massive crystals from Atlantis. They emit strong electromagnetic waves, disrupting navigation. There's also underwater ruins. There's claims of underwater structures in the area. They're often explained as natural formations. But of course, you don't want to get too close to look because it's the Bermuda Triangle. You want to get scared. You don't go through it. You go around it. And there's also a vortex. The Bermuda Triangle has been a vile vortex that creates portals or energy fields because of the lost city of Atlantis, which is below the surface there.
I mean, what was that one? Because I was thinking about our Atlantis episode where you showed the where the city of Atlantis could actually be at, but I was thinking about something completely different there for a second.
No, you're good. Yeah, that was the wrist shot structure in Western Sahara. But then they also had the theory of the Azores. I think I pronounced that correct. The Azores mountain chain off the western coast of Portugal.
Right.
which is like it's basically a mountain chain, but the mountains are just high enough above sea level that they look like islands. Which, I mean, I don't know. I'm not an oceanographer. I don't know. I wonder if Google Earth will show me, like, what is the depth of that ocean there? Like, is it deep enough to where it's like, is there something down there that we won't even pick up? I mean, it is right after the continental shelf drops off. Here, I'll throw my screen up so we can look at this real quick and overanalyze this for what it is.
Overanalyze. That's what we do here.
Yeah, because once you get on the east side of the Bahamas, you can see this, like, I'm going to call it a continental shelf. I don't know if that's correct. Someone correct me in the comments. You're welcome to.
I think you're pretty spot on with that. I think that's actually what it's called.
So it's a big drop off. Like, I don't know. There could have been something here at some point. This could be Atlantis right here. See? There could be something down there.
There could be.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to number 2 on this list. Alien abductions. This could all be explained by alien abductions. And extraterrestrials are responsible for these disappearances. Numerous reports of UFOs. I know I brought it up earlier on in the conversation, but the U.S. Navy and Air Force, they see weird stuff off the eastern and western coast all the time. But in this case, it would be the eastern coast. They see orbs. They see lights that move very fast. They could be drones. They could be our own tech. We don't know, but they see stuff.
Right.
There could be a connection to Area 51, maybe. Personally, I doubt it, but who knows? It's fun to entertain. What's your take on the alien abduction theory? Do you think that's even plausible? Is that just too out there?
I do, but the Area 51 thing is where I'm like, like because they were talking about like underground network. It's like underground network as being like there's like a tunnel that goes all the way from Nevada under the U.S. and then all the way out to sea, and it's like there's actually a connection there, and that's where they, take people like that are in the water. They just like suck them down, and then just they're in Area 51 for the rest of their lives being experimented on. Who knows? I don't know.
Have you heard the theory? There's a number of theories that are similar to this, that the national park system was set up as like a safe zone for abductions to happen. Now, whether those abductions be via aliens or other beings that could be from here, but not what we think of as here.
Mm-hmm.
But those are set up as like the drop zones, basically, or the pickup zones for abductions to happen. Have you ever heard that theory?
I have not.
Yeah, because a lot of people go missing in national parks. A lot of people. You can Google on your end if you want, but if you just look up like national parks, people missing, it's like a crazy statistic of how many people go missing, and you just never, people go missing all the time, and once they're missing in the woods, you're probably not going to find them. So the Bermuda Triangle could be a version of that, just for, seafaring folk. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they.
Are there any numbers that pop up on your end of like how many people go missing?
There's no specific numbers. I'm going to click on a website and then people are going to be like, oh, why is he looking there? Yes, we're taking a brief intermission. We need to know this.
Yeah. Google auto-completed for me how many people go missing in national parks. Between 1,000 and 2,500 people go missing in national parks every year.
Okay, so here's my question then. That I'm just gonna. Let's just. Okay, there's no way that there's that many. Oh my! Because I was like, okay, we lose about 1,000 to 2,000 people a year in national parks. I was like, how many babies are born per year? And it's like 3.75 million in 2019. And I'm like, y'all need to slow down out there, all right? Y'all need to calm down.
Well, actually, kind of quite the opposite. There's like there's a lot of developed countries right now that are going through a population decline or like near collapse. Like if you look at Japan and South Korea and even China, the U.S. has its own problem too by different demographics.
Right.
Like the demographic that, I'll just say it, you and I belong to is going through a population collapse right now because of the lack of reproduction.
Well, nobody can afford to have kids.
Well, even that, but just there's like scenarios where like microplastics, like I don't know if you've seen the statistic, but there's like Well, we talked about this in a very early episode.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, they're finding microplastics everywhere, even down under. Like there's nowhere safe anymore. So people are becoming not sterile, but more likely to be infertile, both male and female, because of,
maybe that's, not to get political, but just a quick little plug. Maybe that's just the government's way of like population control.
It could very well be. Yeah. Why do they encourage camping? Why do they encourage the national park system? So that way you can disappear and control the population. Thank you for your service. All right, let's get back to the list here.
Yes, sir.
Unless, did you find anything else on your end with the national park?
No, like it was just the basic numbers. Like it didn't really show kind of what it was. It showed like actually a few specific people, like, and where they went missing and that they're still currently missing right now. But it didn't really show.
Okay. Let's see here. Number 3, there is a time warp or dimensional portal at the Bermuda Triangle. So apparently the Bermuda Triangle is a location where space-time is just weakened. Pilots and sailors, they say they experience time slips, arriving earlier than expected. That's the other thing, and we didn't really talk about that, is there's like certain stories of sailors and pilots that have gone through the Bermuda Triangle that claim like hours of time has been lost. And that's always a real interesting one for me because, like, how do I explain this without sounding like a dummy? Because I'm a dummy with this topic.
You're not a dummy.
We know time travel is possible. Like, if you think about it, we're going into the future as we speak right now. We are actively going into the future. It's difficult to go backwards, but to go into the future is very easy. You just exist and you go through time. Also, time is relative, but it makes you wonder, like, could there be something that is causing a forward jump in time? Like, I don't know what that is, but it's interesting to entertain if something like that were to happen.
I mean, that was always my biggest, like, out of the Bermuda Triangle, that was probably the biggest theory, like conspiracy theory that I'd actually talked about and heard about over time, was the time warp, the like, just how time is differently, is measured differently there. Those are some of the bigger theories that I've heard about. I mean, some of these, they still seem plausible, but that was probably the most talked about one that I've heard people talk about and refer to.
Yeah, because there's so many things about this, whatever this is, not this planet, this existence, this space, time, and matter, these atoms that we all experience and share and partake in, that we'll never know the answers to. You may know the answers on the other side of whatever this life has in store for us, but like, there are so many unanswered questions that we will just never know. And that could be one of them.
Facts.
It could be one of them.
Right.
Do you want to take the next one on the list? Do you have it up in front of you?
Yeah. Number 4, we have government and military experimentation theory. It says the Bermuda Triangle is the site of a secret government experiment. Claims a secret underwater bases conducting experiments. You have one noted here. I think we briefly talked about this, like maybe like for like a couple minutes, but the Project Rainbow, which is the Philadelphia experiments, linked to the infamous Philadelphia experiment. And then the HAARP connection, the high frequency active auroral research program. That's a line. I've actually haven't heard of that one, but the Philadelphia experiment actually does sound like we talked about it before. I feel like we have mentioned that in a couple of episodes before, at least one. But yeah, go ahead.
I think we might have. So the Philadelphia experiment was an alleged event claimed to have been witnessed by an ex-merchant mariner named Carl M. Allen at the United States Navy's Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, and of course, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Sometime around October 28th, 1943, this gentleman Allen described an experiment where the U.S. Navy attempted to make a destroyer escort, the USS Eldridge, disappear, and the bizarre results that followed. The story surfaced in late 1955 when Allen sent a book full of handwritten annotations referring to the experiment to a U.S. Navy research organization, and, a little later, a series of letters making further claims to a UFO book writer. Allen's account of the event is widely understood to be a hoax, apparently. Several different and sometimes contradictory versions of the alleged experiment have circulated over the years in paranormal literature and popular movies. The U.S. Navy maintains that no such experiment was ever conducted, of course, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that the details of the story contradict well-established facts about the USS Eldridge, and that the physics the experiment is claimed to be based on are non-existent. Interesting.
Very interesting. Well, to me, when it comes to government military experimentation, we've got military facilities everywhere in the world, realistically, when you think about it. I mean, we have even facilities that are in other countries just because we have territory that's there. And I wouldn't put it past our government to have the ability to have underwater facilities and to have facilities that are out of our own reach. Again, the question that still begs an answer is, when did that happen? If it is currently happening, like, when did that start? And that right there will tell you that our own government has been experimenting on our own people that have gone missing for the last 100 years. So,
yeah, man, hang on, let me look this up real quick. There is, what was it? They dropped an atomic bomb in the ocean and had a bunch of their sailors look at it or look away from it to see what was happening. I'm going to have a hard time finding this off on the fly real quick. Because they were testing it on other boats. It wasn't the Bikini Atolls, was it? Oh, man, hang on. Let me see if ChatGPT can help me out real quick.
Well, while you're kind of figuring that one out, we can go ahead and kind of touch base on the next one, though. Number 5 is ancient astronaut theory. It says the Bermuda Triangle is a remnant of ancient alien technology. I kind of brought this up because for those of you who know, like, the Illuminati, like, that's kind of like dated back to, like, ancient pyramidal times, which if you've kind of if you've looked at any history first, like, as far as like Egyptian history, there were certain cases like where UFOs were involved. Like, people had the theories that UFOs were involved, like aliens were involved in the making of the pyramids because they mimic, certain pyramids mimic like space exploration and stuff like that. So there's those kind of theories out there. It says ancient aliens may have left behind powerful technology, stargates. The triangle may be home to a stargate or a wormhole. It says pyramids on the ocean floor, claims pyramid-like structures, which are often debunked. But that kind of just begs the question, like, is this like a man-made thing, or was this something that was here many, many years before we became as advanced as what we are to have the issues that we've been having? Like, was this like a man-made thing, or was this like a naturally forming entity that happened over the course of time?
That's a great question. So I found what I was referencing. It was called Operation Crossroads.
Okay.
So it was a pair of nuclear weapon tests conducted by the U.S. Navy in the Bikini Atoll. So fun fact, this is where it's like SpongeBob Bikini Bottom comes from, because they blew up the Bikini Islands and it sunk down to the bottom, and radioactive sponges and Squidward, all that.
Gotcha.
Happened in 1946. They were the first nuclear weapon tests since the Trinity in 1945, and the first detonations of nuclear devices since the atomic bombing of Nagasaki. The purpose of the test was to investigate the effect of nuclear weapons on warships. But what was wild about this was they basically blew up atomic bombs on the Bikini Atoll Islands, and they had a bunch of like Navy ships around it. So they also put like animals on these ships to see like how, like, what was the aftermath, what was the what was the radioactive negative effects on these animals. But they also had U.S. sailors on some of the ships that were supposed to be far enough away. But research, I think there's a section in here about it. They ended up finding out that a lot of the participants reduced their life expectancy because of this. They were testing for radiation sickness. So anyways, there were a bunch of, guys in the Navy that were basically exposed to an atomic explosion. And
they were sent to the slaughter.
Kind of. It's just kind of wild. But this is where like these images come from of like the nuclear testing.
Well, that also too kind of begs the question that it's like, okay, they had those nuclear explosions that obviously happened within the Bermuda Triangle. Could what we've seen ever since then, I mean, granted, that doesn't explain the previous aspects that happened before then, but could that explain why there was such an uptick in events that happened in the Bermuda Triangle that affected so many people?
You could be onto something with that, potentially.
Try to be sometimes.
Yeah, no,
yeah. It's the very good questions.
Yeah.
You know?
Some of these other ones, I think we've already talked about. Some of these other theories, such as like, Hollow Earth, was there an advanced civilization? That kind of goes into the whole Atlantis theory.
Mm-hmm.
Paranormal phenomena, that kind of goes into the whole UFO, alien conversation. I doubt there's like ghosts and demons doing things here, but who knows?
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Ever seen ghost shit?
I was actually thinking about that. I was like, how do I bring this up?
Like, have you ever seen the movie Ghost Shit?
I have. That's true. No, that is true.
Or 13 or what? No, well, yeah, it was Ghost Ship. I was thinking of a different movie, but yeah, I mean, just demons just hanging out there, just doing their thing and all that kind of stuff. I'm actually curious about something why you continued that.
Yeah,
you discussed this.
No, while you pull that up, one of the fun facts I did find out about the Bermuda Triangle was Christopher Columbus actually wrote about it when he was coming to the quote unquote New World. So Christopher Columbus had reportedly experienced strange compass readings and saw a quote unquote great flame of fire. Some people think that might have been a meteor, but it can be interpretive however if you want it to be, because we don't know too much more than that. But he wrote about that while sailing through the area in the year 1492. So some of these legends about what is experienced out in the Bermuda Triangle go pretty far back.
That's why I was looking up what I was looking up, because I Googled, like, when was the Bermuda Triangle, like, actually named the Bermuda Triangle or whatever? Because, like, in my mind, I'm thinking, like, okay, like your pirate eras, like your, I'm not saying we don't have pirates now, but it's very different now than obviously back in those times. So it's like, to me, I'm like, was this like, and another theory out there, but it's like, was the Bermuda Triangle like an area where, a lot of pirate battles happen? So now it's just the spirits of the pirates just like, raining down on the people now, I don't know.
So I did add it to the notes, like kind of the first naming of the Bermuda Triangle, because clearly, that part of the world's been there this whole time. But apparently the first mention of the Bermuda Triangle as a mysterious or potentially dangerous region of the North Atlantic Ocean came from writer Vincent Gaddis, or Gaddis. I've never heard it said out loud, so I don't know if it's Gaddis or Gaddis. In the year 1964, he introduced the concept in an article titled "The Deadly Bermuda Triangle," which was published in the February issue of Argosy magazine, a pulp magazine known for its stories about adventure and the unexplained. In his article, he described the Bermuda Triangle as a triangle area of the ocean with apexes at Miami, Florida, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Bermuda. He highlighted several incidences of ships and planes mysteriously disappearing in the region, suggesting that there was something unusual and potentially supernatural about the area. His article is the first to bring together various stories of unexplained disappearances into a single narrative, effectively coining the term Bermuda Triangle and cementing the concept in the public's imagination. And of course, people built on top of it from there. The idea of the Bermuda Triangle quickly captured the public's interest and became the subject of numerous books, articles, and television programs. The most famous of these was an early work titled The Bermuda Triangle in 1974 by Charles Berlitz, which popularized many of the conspiracy theories and supernatural explanations associated with the triangle. The book built on Gaddis's work and added further sensationalism, suggesting that the disappearances were caused by everything from underwater alien bases to the lost city of Atlantis. So, in terms of like the lore of it, very 20th century, which is interesting. You would think with some of the stories of like, Christopher Columbus apparently wrote about it. Some of these other ships that went lost to sea back then.
Right.
You think it would have been like an older myth, but at the same time, I think the ocean's always been full of myths. I mean, everyone always thought there's the Kraken, the giant serpents out there.
The Loch Ness Monster, yeah.
Yeah, there's, the ocean's always had these myths, and sailors are very ritualistic, and sailors have their own set of lore that I can't even begin to scratch the surface on.
Right.
So, but I guess it really wasn't until the mid-20th century when someone finally started connecting dots and, created a narrative around the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, it also, too, is just interesting to me that only very few people, like you said, Christopher Columbus and a few other people, like, dating back that far, and nothing really came, except for, like, those few times that it was documented and mentioned. Nothing was really ever documented and mentioned up until, like, what was it, probably the 19th century, give or take, something like that, maybe, and going into, like, the earliest 20th century. So it's that just kind of, to me, it's like, how far back does this stuff actually go? Like, how far, like, what is there actually, because that ocean's obviously got to be pretty deep to have, and things have probably just decayed over time, but you're still going to have remnants of stuff down there. So it's like, how much stuff can, be down there? And, realistically, when you think about it, how many possible corpses are still down there? How many bones are down there? Like, it's just different things like that, really makes you think about it. And, we're never going to know probably in our lifetime. And realistically, it could all just be as easy as, like, yeah, there's just additional magnetic fields out there, but it's like, okay, cool. Why have you not solved the issue then of our technology to make it to where people can travel more safely through those areas then? That's kind of my thing.
Yeah. Man, I was going to say something. What was I going to say? Oh, man. Oh, it was, so earlier this week, I saw a clip, scrolling TikTok or something. I forget where I saw it, but it might have been on X. And it's kind of funny to think about, but, out of all the life, out of all the boats, out of all the people that have all perished in the ocean, 100% of all things that have lived in the ocean have also died in the ocean. And so, of course, they're all on the ocean floor. I know this sounds very simple, but it's interesting to think about that. Everything that has gone down in the ocean is at the ocean floor. It's just a matter of actually searching, looking, seeing what's down there. Now, of course, knowing that a lot of things decay over time, especially if it's, biological matter, that's how it's going to break down. There's all the ecosystem, things will eat it up, etc. But like iron ships, large wooden ships, things like that. Now, I know, if something sunk in the 1400s, I know there's a bunch of Spanish ships they can still dig up in the Gulf of Mexico, and the, West Atlantic. But a lot of these things that went down, if they did go down, like Flight 19, those airplanes are still out there somewhere. Right. It's just who's got the time and money to go find them, And when you do find them, it's been so long since that happened, you're not really proving anything. It's just like, oh yeah, we found them. But I guess maybe where you find them really helps.
Right, because, no one really knows. No one knows the true reason behind it. And again, with what's his name?
The guy that they're trying to vindicate.
I was gonna say Bruce Gernon or whatever. Like, he, the guy who wrote the book, who said he survived the Bermuda Triangle. Like, again, it seems interesting, but it just depends on what his actual experience is. And then I think there's also another person that you noted here, Joshua Slocum, famous sailor, the first man to sail solo around the world, disappeared in 1909 while traveling through the Bermuda Triangle. Despite his disappearance, many sailors still regard him as a legend. Some believe his ghostly presence guides him through the treacherous waters. That's still probably my biggest question is, take out the electromagnetic stuff, and even the waves and things like that. But it's just like, if you're just sailing through, if you got a banger of a ship, this ship is like a beastly ship. How does it just go missing? How does it just answer this? I need this answer. Like, how does it just disappear? And just, you just can't find it anymore. It's like, it's there, and there's no way that area is so large that there's no way you can't find that ship,
Well, next week for our 30th episode, we are going to do a live stream, so maybe we can charter a boat and do the live stream from the Bermuda Triangle. Unscripted Company, live from the Bermuda Triangle, special 30th edition of the podcast. I think we can make that happen. If we can just get everyone out there that's listening right now, if you just want to donate, I don't know, $1,000 each. I think it's a small dollar value to really ask of everyone that is listening to this episode at the moment. But if you just want to send that to us, we'll definitely charter a ship and do a live episode.
Right. It's in the name of science.
In the name of science.
And we need to, just think about just all the money that you pay in taxes to our government for their scientists to develop what they do, but yet it never gets done. At least if you give us the money, then it's going to get done. Like you'll see us out there on the water next week. But yeah, it's definitely something we can figure out,
Yeah. Also, shout out, if you are listening still, first of all, appreciate you. Love and respect. If you want, leave us a comment down below. Let us know. We've been talking about the Bermuda Triangle, and clearly, both Riley and I are experts in the topic. We are seasoned veterans, dare I say, academics seeking justice for the Bermuda Triangle. But want to hear from your opinion as well. What do you think it is? Do you think it's paranormal? Do you think there's aliens? Do you think it's Atlantis? Do you think it just happens to be Mother Nature just kind of being a little cranky and taking ships out because they're doing things they shouldn't be doing? Let us know down below. Also, depending on where you're watching, could be YouTube, could be Rumble, could be Spotify, could be on another platform in the future. Maybe you have a Neuralink and we're 100 years in the future and you're watching us through your eyeballs, basically. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, I wanted you to go ahead and... Oh, it's a bad plug. But no, give us a like, give us a subscribe, a follow. We definitely appreciate it. As always, Riley, I'm going to hand it off to you. If you want to send them home with any wise words of wisdom. I also forget to always say this, but we do have a merchandise store, which if you want to find a way to support the podcast monetarily, that is one way you can do it while also getting some super comfy swag. But as always, Riley.
So let's see here. I always get put on the spot and I feel like I have to think of some really wise words to say.
I feel guilty every time I pass it over to you too, because I know for context, for everyone that's listening, I have never once told Riley I'm going to hand it off to him for wise words of wisdom. I think I did it randomly once. I was like, all right, I'll just do this. I've just done it ever since. And
it just stuck.
It stuck.
Again, as my co-host said, we do appreciate your support. We do appreciate everything that you guys do, whether it be watching, liking, subscribing, following, whatever the case may be. We would really just like to see more of those numbers in due time. Again, we do have our merch, and as you can see, my co-host decided to do a little surprise and has a tester coffee mug. So for all of our coffee drinkers out there, and I saw that and I'm like, I got to get myself one. So if you like drinking coffee and maybe you're just sitting down on a crisp Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. when this podcast launches, what better way to watch it than drinking out of your Unscripted Company coffee mug? Wise words of wisdom. If you ever had the opportunity to go to the Bermuda Triangle, not by just like traveling through it, but like you had an opportunity to take a boat and go out to the Bermuda Triangle, would you do it? Would you like to go out there and experience what is possibly going on in the Bermuda Triangle? Like, is there ever that inkling in you? Let us know in the comments down below, because that definitely would be something we would like to know. And then maybe you can come with us when we charter our boat next week. But until then, stay frosty, and we will see you guys next week on our 30th episode live stream, where we will be doing a live stream every 5th episode after that. So you will see more of us doing it live here on Unscripted Company. So you guys have a good one.
Ooh, I'm going to leave with some dark humor real quick. Oh man, I had a joke lined up. I'm just going to, it's just going to fade to black. That's all.